Rich, extremely hard to believe. Fourth season, 122nd episode of the Entrepreneurs United podcast. We're kicking off 2023. It's kind of amazing to think that we're here, but can't wait to jump into what 2022 has done for us and what 2023 has in store.
Well, I got to say, I'm happy to be here. I hope that every year when we have a kickoff episode, I express my gratitude for you and the opportunity to do this together, and the amount of fun and education and relationships. And yeah, it's been a blast, and look forward to continuing to do it for years to come.
Absolutely. I had the pleasure of listening back through the episode we did. It was episode 17. Create your life plan and kick ass in 2021.
Episode 17, that's over 100 episodes ago.
I know, and we were complete rookies. Our microphones didn't work. We didn't know what we were talking about. But I've always enjoyed, on a personal basis, even before we started doing this podcast, getting together at the end of the year and just thinking through myself. Where am I? What did I learn? Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? This time of year always brings that back for me. And I did it for the first time with somebody else on episode 17, which was with you.
Yeah.
And then we did it again on episode 70, which was 12 months ago. Make 2022 the best year possible.
Yeah, I love it. Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Yeah. So, we typically do things a little bit structured. And a lot of this is going to be unstructured, but where I thought we would start with is accountability, right? We've always demonstrated accountability with each other. If we say we're going to do something, we usually hold each other accountable to say, hey, are you going to do what you say you're going to do? So I think we should start there, because we made some claims in 2022 and 12 months ago on what we were going to do this particular year or change differently in our lifestyles. So I want to kind of go through that with you a little bit.
So this is public accountability. That may turn into either public shaming or public championing. I don't know which way it's going to go.
Exactly. The second part of this, I think we should talk about is like, what are some of our goals for 2023, and kind of list them out there again for each other. But then we should talk about from an entrepreneur's perspective, what are some big things we think entrepreneurs should be thinking about as they enter into 2023. So just all in all, I think just recapping where we've been, where we want to go. Has always been a good resource selfishly for us. And to your point, we're doing it publicly. But I also think, Rich, it's a way that others maybe should be doing this with either themselves and or with their partners or with a business partner like we do. Like, it's so rewarding. I feel like I've upped my game by this accountability that we now have together via this podcast. So I'd encourage others to do the same.
I like it. One of the things I want to keep in mind as we go through this review is one of the purposes of reviewing the past is really to inform the future.
Yep.
So it's not as much about, was it a hit or a miss? It's more about the learning from the hit or miss and distilling that so that we can then have the future that we want, because we can't change what we did or didn't do. So I just want us to continue with that type of lens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So no punishments here, Rich, just learning to move forward. So no worries. But what I did is I had an opportunity to go back and listen through, and I've clipped up some flashbacks to what we said a year ago that we wanted to move forward in 2022 with. So if it's okay with you, I'll play a couple flashbacks for you. We'll talk about them. We'll play a couple of my flashbacks. We'll talk about them, and then we'll move on. Does that sound good?
Fire it up.
All right, here we go. Here's flashback number 1. This is what Rich talked about in terms of what you wanted to do in 2022 personally.
I didn't embrace what was there for me, and I didn't allow myself to be more flexible than sometimes what my nature is.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, when I was looking for a failure, I came across a couple of successes, and it all centered around this kind of embracing what's present that I'm not always great at and want to be intentional about and use that in 2022. The one thing to focus on for me would be evolve. Mm-hmm. And specifically evolve myself. And it starts with me. This year, through all the flexibility that in embracing that I needed to do in my professional life, I let go some of focusing on me. And it's like, at what point am I going to stop struggling to practice the daily habits every day that I know make me feel good? Whether it be between exercise and meditation or eating or podcasts or reading, or like, at what point can I just be consistent and unwavering? And in preparing for the conversation with you, it was like, it starts with me, And I need to take the entrepreneurial spirit that I have, that you and I both have, that's a do whatever it takes attitude. And we do that about business. I need to have a do whatever it takes attitude to prioritize myself first.
So, Rich, as we hear those flashbacks of what you were thinking a year ago today and what you wanted to focus on in 2022, how does that resonate with you, and how'd you do?
Sounds like some good stuff. I think I've done a good job. One of the things that I think has helped me embrace what's present, funny enough, is actually doing some preparation for thinking of what it is that can throw me off track and planning to be able to stay present. For example, in some conversations, I tend to rehearse in my mind what I'm going to say next, and I'm not fully listening. And there's some conversations where I really know that I have to be fully present, throw away whatever's going on in my mind just to be an excellent listener. I feel like I've done that more over the last year than I have previously. You may have found that in some of our conversations, because when there's a pause in something the other person is saying, sometimes I just say, hey, give me a second as I kind of catch up with some of my thoughts, instead of immediately having something to say. I have said that more because I've gotten into really being a better listener as often as I can. So I'd say, in terms of embracing what's present, some of the preparation of knowing when is it going to be really critical to be an excellent listener, what can throw me off track, and how I want to handle that. And it's okay to not immediately have a response. I can think about it afterwards.
Yep. And certainly you talked a lot about, if I recall correctly, getting to your routine and how, being conscious of yourself in terms of your routine and not letting the tail wag the dog a little bit as it relates to, scheduling a 7 a.m. call so you can't do your morning routine. That throws your day off and so on and so forth. How'd you do in that vein?
You know what I did after that podcast is I ended up scheduling 4 days a week at 7 a.m. I have breakfast club with our 9-year-old, Paige. And I literally have it in my schedule. I don't take any calls at 7 a.m., none. Because what I've prioritized is from 7 o'clock to 7:30, there's breakfast club with Paige, and we've had an amazing time. We've done everything from, I bought dad joke books and silly kid joke books, are what they're called, and she and I will read jokes back and forth. She and I have watched videos together. We'll just sit down and talk about what she's looking forward to that day, what's going on with her friends. I've gotten more in touch with her by scheduling those than what I was previously. So I'd say I knocked it out of the park on that one. And it was a direct result of the commitment that was made on that podcast.
Yeah, and I think it was certainly reinforced too in episode 80, right? Execute the coach's plan for daily success.
Yes.
With Mike Kavanaugh, right? What you did in that particular situation, which is an absolute hack of life, is you didn't just depend on your daily routine happening. You actually scheduled components of your daily routine that when you looked at, hey, are you going to reschedule your breakfast club with Paige versus having this call that may not be as necessary or urgent or as important? You're like, no, I got an appointment. I can't do it, right? And you had a coach's plan already in place. So love that.
You know what? I don't think I ever told you this. Did you know that we changed the executive leadership meeting time on Mondays because I was absolutely inflexible about I'm not going to interrupt that time, not even once a week. So it was changed to start at 7:30 my local time. Yeah. Because of that, because I honored and respected, I did whatever it took to be able to protect that time, including, unfortunately, that impacted some other people's schedules. But after the initial conversation, nobody seemed to care. That's when we started. We started 7:30 Central, and it hasn't been a discussion point since. But it was a little uncomfortable to stick up for, what was important to me once I started scheduling those times.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about last year was self-compassion is not selfish. And for you to be concerned about, hey, this is my schedule. This is what I got to protect for me to be my best self every day. I love Michael Alasso, right? Bring myself the best part. So congrats on doing that. And I guess you passed the accountability test. Let's switch over and flash back to what I said about a year ago in terms of what I wanted to accomplish in 2022.
Do it.
I fell victim to the situations where I possibly could have controlled to be more productive and more intentional about what I'm going to do next week. But because we were locked down, because we were shut down, because things, have always been touch and go throughout the past couple of years, I feel like I wasn't as intentional about my next week. And so, examples to that is the way I would feel on Monday morning where I'm like, what do I got going on this week? Well, if I don't know what I have going on this week, I'm probably not too excited about it. I know what I got going on next week as an example, and I'm excited about it. But if I don't know what I have going on that week, when that week starts, probably wasn't very intentional, probably wasn't as productive as it could have been. And that's the pivot I want to be able to change. So to give you, I won't give you specific examples, but it's that feeling you have on Monday morning when you're like, what's going on this week? Probably you're not too excited about it, and probably is a sign of not being intentional.
Yeah, that's good.
And I want to look back at 2022 and go, that was a good year. That was one of the best years possible. Maximized everything that life had out there to offer. And that takes, maybe the next step, which is, how can you do that? And I think for me, it's part of the lesson that I continue to learn through this podcast, which is that clarity and intentionality. Do I have clarity on what I want to accomplish? And am I being intentional about scheduling those trips with my wife, scheduling, opportunities with my kids, business, making sure we're scheduling what we're going to do to accomplish the goals that we're going to accomplish, setting those goals, just having that intentionality around success in 2022 on all particular levels. So that's kind of when I look at next year, I think that's kind of my motto is I want to bring back the good old days in 2022, not just 2022, but I got to start with 2022 because I'll never look back at 2021 and 2020 and probably not 2019 and probably not 2018, to be honest with you, and say, well, those were the good old days. So dang it, like it's time to make it happen. Like it's time to let, this pandemic move past us, to live our lives and be intentional about how do we make 2022 that year we'll look back and go, wow, really came out with intention and made it my best year possible.
So my question for you is, when you made that statement, if you can remember back, what did you mean by bring back the good old days? And then did you do that?
Well, I'm surprised you don't remember because you have a great memory. But 25 years ago, we were riding around in your
I remember.
Right? And you were always like, John, do you know what's going on right now? And I'd be like, no, what's happening? You're like, these are the good old days. Right?
Yep.
And we were like 23, 24. And, what stuck with me in that, when I talked about that last year was, I didn't feel like for the past couple of years, because of a lot of reasons, failure in business, pandemic, a bunch of different reasons, that I was living my best life ever. And I don't feel like 20 years from now, I'm going to look back at those years and go, oh, those were the good old days. However, that's not an excuse for right now as to why 2022 couldn't be that year. That 10, 15 years from now, I look back and go, oh, those were good old days. Rich and I were doing podcasts. I did this, I did that. I lived my best life ever. And so I fell into the victim mentality, and I was tired of it. And I wanted to look forward into my schedule. And I wanted to see every week, every month that I had things come up that were really exciting, because I didn't feel that way in 21 as an example. I felt in 21, I'd wake up, I'd get in my office on Monday morning, go, what's going on this week? Which calls do I have to make? What's going on? What's happening? And I didn't hate it. I didn't have tons of excitement about it. So I wanted to really unleash that in 2022. And I don't know, I feel really good about my accomplishment in that area for a bunch of different reasons.
Well, tell me about it. The words I wrote down were, you wanted to have clarity and intentionality. You wanted to feel excited and productive.
Yep.
Was there a process you used to have clarity and intentionality that then you shifted that into the schedule? Because then you talked about scheduling. So, like, what did you do to do this that you're feeling well about it today?
Yeah, I mean, I have to bring back so much credit to this podcast. A 1-page, 20-minute a morning, doing that, following this episode and saying, here's what I'm going to do, and committing that to you and being, okay, I'm going to make this the good old days. What am I going to do? I went down and I put down all the things I'm trying to achieve in my 5-year plan, my 3-year plan, my 1-year plan. And I literally broke down all the things that I wanted to accomplish this year. And there was a lot. And then I had to schedule it and fit it in. And because we now live in a remote workplace kind of world, I traveled the world. I went on a 5 week vacation. Amy and I had a couple of vacations together. I traveled around for my kids' sports. I saw my family in Canada multiple times. I achieved some business successes along the way. We continued this podcast. I mean, across the board. I mean, you and I got together for the first time in 10 years, maybe
Yeah.
this past summer. I mean, I had an entrepreneurs retreat that I went to that it was fantastic. I can go across the board. I will look back on 2022 and go, this is my best year ever, but it didn't happen by accident. It definitely was the intentionality of right now was something I need to do, quite frankly, in the next few days, because we're in 2023 right now, is what is my plan for 2023 with clarity and intentionality. What do I want to accomplish? Much like a business plan, lay it all out and go do it, because it worked for me in 2022. So I have to keep that going. I want 2023 to also be the good old days. What are the things I can do there to make sure that happens? Go schedule it, book it, commit to it here, and have that accountability for you next year when we play that clip again.
So is it fair to say it almost sounds too simplistic, but you wrote down goals in multiple categories of your life. It wasn't business only.
Yep, correct.
Some of them presumably were more visionary than others, and that's okay. But you thought about with intentionality multiple areas of your life. On the clip you just played, you talked about wife, kids, business. So you had at least those categories. You wrote down goals, and then you scheduled time to be able to meet those goals. Is that an oversimplification, or is that essentially what you did and why you feel so good?
No, that's exactly it. I think the only piece in terms of scheduling is I intentionally moved forward with them as
Mm.
well. I put all obstacles aside. I was like, look, if this is what I want to do, and I would revisit it too. Okay, I've got this one done. Okay, I got this one scheduled. Okay, I got this one done. I got this one scheduled. And I followed through with them as we went through the year, all the way up into the point where I remember in the summertime, Amy and I, as you may know, like to go to Vegas in the fall. We'd always used to, not prior to the pandemic, we'd always just go to Vegas in the fall. And I remember in September going, hey, when are we going? When are we booking? What are we doing? And she's like, why are you so anxious about this? We've been doing a lot of traveling. I was like, no, we're doing this. and had that intentionality to make sure things happened.
Did you go to Vegas or did Johnny Vegas go?
We both went.
I think you should give our podcast listeners a small treat of Johnny Vegas. What is Johnny Vegas?
I guess that's the factor that Amy would call Jekyll and Hyde, right? Which is, sometimes we're all business, and sometimes we can all be parties. So sometimes when Vegas comes around, Johnny Vegas comes out for the all party mode.
And that's every fall. That's a good time.
I'll stop the story there. But no, I appreciate going through this. I know for you guys listening, you may be, okay, why am I listening to Rich and John recap their goals of what they want to do? I think it's it's helped me to be here and share this with you last year and now recap and go, okay, I got to keep this going. I got to keep that accountability up. And if you don't have an accountability partner, get one. I think it's so important. Rich, you provide so much value to me just by even listening to what I'm saying. And then I know you're going to hold me accountable to it and ask me those questions. So that's been a huge help for me. So thank you for that.
I think it goes both ways. It's both having an accountability partner and somebody who's going to say, hey, how did that go? Mm-hmm. And when I say go both ways, yes, that. But the other way is just having a space to declare to someone else who cares what your intention is.
Yep.
What is it that you want to do? Once we verbalize things, once we put things in writing, all of a sudden it galvanizes us to do something with it. We are so much more likely to do something with it when it's shared with others, or we put it in writing, even if it's not shared with others. We're so much more likely to take action. And then particularly when we know we have somebody on the other end who's going to say, hey, here's what you said you were going to do. How did that go? With compassion. Accountability, I think accountability got a bad rap somewhere. Accountability doesn't mean a flogging because you missed some things. It's a compassionate, hey, how did that go? You said you were going to do this. Did you do it? Why not? What happened? What are you planning in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's certainly much more of that, to your point, not pressure, but just that, oh, I got to do this. Especially what we're going to talk about next, right? What are some of our goals for 2023? I mean, if I'm going to articulate this here, I better go plan and execute upon it. Much like if you're a CEO of a company, you're like, hey, here's what we're going to do as a business this year. You got to go put a plan together and go execute it, or try your best to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's move to the second section. What do we want to accomplish in 2023? What are some of your thoughts on that before we get started?
Again, I'm excited to declare some intentionality. I knew, you and I knew that we would go here, and I thought about what it is I wanted to share,
Yep.
what it is I was clear about. And I want to tell you a little bit of a story. I don't know how much of the story I've told you up to this point. Uh, on August 14th, was the first time in 2022. It was the first time that we brought our 9-year-old Paige over to the Park Adventureland, which happens to be in Altoona, Iowa, near Des Moines, where I live. So we went there, and it was a couple of years of passing all the roller coasters and Paige asking, "Hey, can we go there?" And I'd always say yes, but I'd never give a timeline. So I finally gave a timeline and said by the end of the summer. We ended up going on August 14th, and it was my wife Shelby and myself and Paige. And she went to bed the night before, all excited, could barely sleep, woke up early. We went over there, tickets cost a bunch of money. We walk in, there's a cotton candy vendor, there's, the Cracker Jacks, the funnel cakes. We're walking in. She's just in awe of the place and so excited to go ride some rides. And we went up to the first ride that we came across. It happened to be one of the more intimidating rides that you go upside down and around and all over the place. And we got in line for the Monster. That was the ride. And it was like 40 minutes long. Well, here's Paige's first chance to wait 40 minutes to go on a minute and a half ride, right? And believe it or not, as a 9-year-old, she held full attention. She's hearing the people screaming and going up, and she's so excited, and she's hugging us, and thanks for being here. I can't wait to get on a ride with you guys. And she's jumping up and down the way she does. And we finally get up, and it's our turn. And we slide in to get on the ride on the Monster, and we go to buckle up, and I couldn't buckle up because I was too big. So the shoulder harness wouldn't close quite enough for their safety standards.
Okay.
I get kicked off the ride. Okay. First time going there, years of anticipation. I get kicked off the ride. I'm standing on the sideline. I watch them go. They have a great time. For the rest of the time, I'm like, I'm not going to risk getting kicked off another ride. So I didn't go on any roller coasters. I didn't go on any rides. Shelby went on all of them, which she'd prefer not to go on all of them. She'd prefer I go on some. So while I'm sitting there, not participating in this really joyous, anticipated event, I'm sitting there next to the morbidly obese, next to senior citizens who don't go on rides. And I pull my phone out, and I'm about to do the regular routine that everybody does. Like, I don't know what yours is. You go check the stocks, you check your email, you go through stuff. And I'm about to do that. And right before I did it, I thought, I can do that and accept that this is what's going to happen. Like, this is just part of my journey. This is part of my future. I'm not going to go on rides like this.
Yeah.
Or I can do something to make sure I'm not here again next year. Had I ever read to you the message I ended up sending to a trainer that day?
No.
Sent over a Facebook Messenger message to this person. I'm going to read it to you on what I sent her that day. I said, "Hi, Carmen. We don't know each other. Today I weighed in at 314 pounds. I'm at Adventureland as my wife and daughter are in line for a ride without me because I'm too big for most rides' safety bars to pull down far enough. In my life, I've lost and gained 100 pounds twice. I've been very streaky. On one streak, I successfully completed 3 half marathons. Part of being streaky is what I call riding the wave of motivation. Well, here I am sitting out from experiences with my family because of my weight. Guess what? I have a choice to make. Accept it and move along, or ride the wave of motivation and plan to get healthier. I didn't want this wave to pass without reaching out to someone somewhere. I looked on Facebook, came across you, learning you've completed 3 Ironmans and trained people for triathlons. I want to do a triathlon sprint in 2023. Will you train me on nutrition and exercise to help me make it happen? If yes, I'd be grateful. What are the next steps? Fast forward the story. She says yes. That week of August 14th, which is now about 19 and a half weeks ago, I started training with her 3 times a week. She's a swimming instructor. We did strength training twice a week. We did swimming instruction. I've never swam athletically before in my life. It took 8 or 10 weeks to be able to get that down and be able to get the breathing down. And so today I'm 51 pounds down. I'm actually only, I think it's 1 or 2 pounds off from where I was in 2019. I feel great. And my plan is to do a triathlon. It's a triathlon sprint in June. And because I felt so on track to hitting that triathlon sprint in June, I actually scheduled, I don't know if I told you this, I actually scheduled a triathlon that is not a sprint. It's actually a step up from that. That's the international or Olympic distance triathlon. That'll be on August 27th. So that's what's going on. And I couldn't feel better. I feel excellent to have this big, intimidating goal that, quite frankly, I know I'm not enough for today, but I know I'm going to do enough today to be able to be enough tomorrow. I'm doing what it takes to be able to get it done. And I couldn't be more motivated to do it. It's completely changed how I eat, my exercise, my attitude. Of course, physically, I feel better. But you know what's underrated when you gain a bunch of weight, John, is mentally. I feel so good mentally that I can do hard things and not quit. And that translates over into every area of my life.
Wow. Wow. Well, this took an interesting turn because when you said you got on the seat and you couldn't buckle up, I started chuckling because I thought you were scared to go on the roller coaster ride. But so that took an interesting turn. But holy cow! Okay, so I knew a little bit of this, just tidbits, but not the full story by any stretch of the imagination. And I mean, you're really stretching the envelope here in 2023 in terms of your goals and objectives to run 2 triathlons, a sprint one and then an Olympic style one. Have it do whatever it takes. You're committing to it here publicly. I'm assuming you have not told too many people about this at this juncture because you haven't really talked to me too much about it. So
I've really not. I've really kept it under wraps because I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm not doing it for recognition. I'm not doing it. Frankly, I'm not even doing it to lose weight. I'm doing it to make sure that I'm capable to accomplish something big.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 48 years old. I just turned 48, as you know, last week. I'm 48 years old, and I still believe that I could do whatever I want in this life.
Yep.
And to me, this is a demonstration to myself that if I set big goals and I stay disciplined and I work hard, I could still do whatever I want. And the story I will know about myself is I ran my first triathlon at 48 years old. And 54 weeks after getting kicked off a roller coaster, I completed an Olympic distance triathlon in Chicago with 5,500 other people. I'm still intimidated as heck. And it's part of what helps me get up every day and focus on eating right and training right. And I'm really excited about it and I feel excellent.
Well, I've always told people the last thing I'm ever going to do is run a marathon or a triathlon because I don't enjoy it. And I remember asking somebody about it. I was like, well, why do you do it? Like they talked about the pain they have or how they, just how hard it is and their muscles and their knees. And I'm like, well, why do you do this to your body? Like, I don't get it. And they said exactly what you said a few moments ago, which is if you're able to do this, you don't even know how to swim, and you're able to do an Olympic triathlon within a year, what can't you accomplish in life? Right? The sense of I can do anything if I can do this is so powerful.
Yes. Yeah. And I wasn't, as I said before, I wasn't willing to accept that I'm going to continue to be excluded from joyful moments with my family because I can't keep my weight under control.
Yep.
And it's really interesting, as I put in there, and from our journey together, that my weight has gone up and down. This is the first time that I have lost weight, but not for the purpose of losing weight. I'm losing weight so I could do something with my body. I'm losing weight as a secondary reason. The primary reason I'm doing what I'm doing is because I want to accomplish a triathlon on August 27th. That is a Olympic distance triathlon. You know what I need to do that? I need to train. I need to eat right. I need to take care of myself. I need to rest well. Uh, I need to lose some weight. I'm doing it for a purpose beyond looking good. All the reasons I did it wrong in the past.
Yep.
Do you happen to remember when I was in the mortgage business?
I was going to bring it up. I didn't want to put you on the spot because there is a time in your past where you did do it for something other than what you just articulated.
Yes. When I was in the mortgage business, I was in the owner's office at one point, and we were talking, and I made some disparaging, deprecating comment about my weight and myself. And he looks up and pulls his glasses down and looks up and says, you could lose weight if you wanted to. And I just kind of looked at him, and he said, yeah, you could lose weight if you wanted to. I'll tell you what, I'll give you 10 grand if you lose 50 pounds in the next 4 months. I said, okay, what do I owe you if I lose? He goes, $10. Okay, you're on. So over the next 4 months, I proceeded to lose 57 pounds.
Yep.
He paid me the $10,000. And guess what happened next?
You put the weight back on.
I put the weight back on because my objective was to lose weight. And it's really rewarding, John. You haven't had issues with your weight in the way that I have.
Yeah.
It's really rewarding to lose weight. You get all these compliments. Oh, you look so good. All that clothing. Oh, your face is shaping up nicely. You get all these compliments. And then when you end up hitting a goal, all the compliments go away. And so does some of the motivation. So I've had to be really careful about this next goal that I have to do this triathlon. And I'm already starting to think of what I want to do next that I will not share on this podcast, one thing at a time. Okay. But I've already thought of what I may want to do next and how I'm going to make sure that this isn't just another time that I lose weight and cycle back up, and how I'm going to do this right and make a lifelong commitment this time to being healthy.
Well, you know what's going to happen, right? Because
you're going to hold me accountable to this in 12 months.
Episode 174, in January of 2024, I'm going to be asking you about this. So that's the beauty of what we got going on here, and I love it. And I'll tell you what, I mentioned, jokingly, when you got on that roller coaster ride, how you didn't put your seatbelt on because you were scared. If you weren't scared then, you're scared now, right? Because this is a big challenge and a big goal, and also you're sharing with us a ton of vulnerability. In terms of your history and what you're trying to achieve and why it's important for you to accomplish these things. And I appreciate you sharing that because I think a lot of people can relate to that in one way, shape, or form. Maybe not in the same context, but in any context that they see fit. And I've certainly come, with a big objective for 2023 as well, as we talked about and planned. Hey, let's stretch the envelope here. Let's not just come with some small goals we're going to execute. You came with a big one. I got a big one as well, and I could tell you it scares the crap out of me. And I need to really put my vulnerability aside. I need to be vulnerable, in this process because it does scare me. Yes, and that is in 2023. I plan on, maybe plan on shouldn't be the right word. I will. I will release my first book.
Awesome.
And I've been thinking about it. I've been writing for multiple years now. I've been doing a ton of research on my learnings and others' learnings in the way that I process things. And I have put myself in a position now to have a draft of what I want to execute on. And now I'm in the editing process of getting that to a production. Scares the crap out of me, though, Rich. Part of it is, will people like it? Will they judge it this way? Is it as complete as it should be? And all those vulnerabilities, similar to maybe the ready, aim process that we've talked about before. And you got to be careful about, just firing off a book and not having it be prepared. So I'm very scared about it. There is a history of authorship in my family. My father's written multiple books back in Canada as a professor of university, more in computer science type related items. But this book for me is really about my journey and my learnings and how I feel they can help other entrepreneurs that may be in the same position of growing their businesses. And it's almost a, here's what I learned by going this way and doing this incorrectly and falling flat on my face. Here's maybe a different way to approach it, and how you can really break through the messy middle of a growth business.
What's the journey been for you from you have no thoughts about writing a book through to today you're making a public declaration about I'm writing a book in 2023. Talk to me about that journey of gaining the confidence to make that type of declaration today.
Hmm. The confidence, I would say, has come from this podcast,
Hmm.
for a couple of different reasons. Um, you know, we put out a lot of content, Rich. Some of it's good, some of it's great, some of it's it's okay. But we put out, we're constantly there, we're constantly present, we're constantly going after it, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished. And I'm more open to not being perfect and not having this production be perfect or our microphones be perfect or our guests be perfect. Nothing's ever perfect, but we keep showing up. So that's one part of it. The other part is our guests. I mean, when you think about the guests that we've had on this episode, a lot of them are authors of books. And a lot of them, we've bought their books and we would have never even known about it unless we had this podcast. As I'm reading their book, I'm like, they don't profess to be the expert in everything, but they're sharing their story on what worked for them. Um, and I love that part of it. And I really have connected with a few of our guests that have encouraged me to say, look, you got a story in there. You should tell it. And my vulnerability was, I don't know if people care. I don't know if they want. But then I started processing, well, even if they don't, me documenting my learnings, even if it's for myself intentionally, I want to put this together to pass on to any entrepreneur who ever cares, then that's good enough for me.
Mm.
If more people enjoy it, fantastic. But this is a way for me to give to entrepreneurs that maybe in the same spot that I was, or in the same spot, that I currently am, and want to break through to that other side to achieve, wealth and freedom in business and accomplish their dreams, but also not crash and burn, like some of my failure stories will tell in the book. So
You sound really grounded, like very similar to how we feel about this podcast, where we go, hey, hopefully we get a bunch of listeners and we're going to impact a bunch of lives. If we don't, we're getting value, and we believe there are other people that could get value from it too. And it sounds like you've taken that approach with the book, where you're going, hey, even if I just document it for me, even if I crystallize the lessons that I need to remember that I was taught, that's okay. That's enough. In the meantime, I think somebody else is going to benefit. I don't have these crazy goals. I'm not trying to get rich off of it. I'm just trying to put a story forward of things that I've learned that I feel like other people may be able to benefit from. It
yeah,
sounds very grounded and very centered for you.
but that was learned through this podcast as well, right? And what we've been doing together, which is there doesn't have to be an expectation. There's certainly an investment on my side in time and energy and resources and cost, but I see that as an investment that I'm willing to make in myself to document what I have. But there's no expectation of, hey, buy my book and I'm going to sell you this course, or anything of that
Right.
nature. It's more of I want to document what I've learned, because I do believe that there are many small business owners that are in the same boat of trying to grow their company and want to make sure that they learn from lessons of others. And I think that could really benefit people. But scary, very, very scary. But now it's out there, so now I'm screwed. I haven't really told anybody here except for a couple of people in my life before today. So now it's out there. Now I get to work.
And we've both gone public today with things that are privately really important, we're incredibly committed to, that we haven't told a lot of people for whatever reason. And this is a bit of a coming out party for us. Do you have a title in mind that you're open to sharing?
I'm not open to sharing that today. As I mentioned, the book is in draft form. Titles are still being passed around.
Okay.
But I do believe that within a couple of months there will be a title, a cover, kind of a little bit of a narrative, and you'll probably start hearing me talk about it a little bit more through podcasts as I start throwing around some of the theories with some of our guests if it's applicable. But really, the concept is, this book is going to be written for small to medium sized business owners that have probably had their business for 10, 15, 20 years, and they're kind of stuck in that messy middle of trying to grow their business but not having to work 80 to 100 hours a week and pay themselves last and be in that type of position, and they want to break through to achieve wealth and freedom. And what are some of the things that you shouldn't do because you might lose the whole thing, and what are some ways that you can achieve that and break through? So that's kind of the premise of the book, and it goes through kind of a framework that I've come through in developing that I'll be sharing in the book as well.
Hmm. So as you're withholding the title because you don't have it completely worked out, one of the things that went through my mind was I think we should both record maybe 15 or 20 minutes before our events, your event being the release of your book. So 15 or 20 minutes before the event, and then maybe a week after the event, 15 or 20 minutes. And there's, John's book release in the episode that you hear the pre and the post of how things went. And then there's my episode that you hear the pre and the post of how that event went on August 27th. That might be you talk about accountability. I'd love to have this kind of pre and post recap together during the year so we could check in with our listeners who I'm sure may be checking in with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to see how we achieve these goals. And we have one last section, Rich, to talk about for today, which is what should entrepreneurs be thinking about as they enter into 2023 themselves, and some thoughts we may have for entrepreneurs in general. And you shared a couple of thoughts last year that I thought were really, really, really strong. At this point last year, you were talking about this wave of economic impact of printing money, and how every wave is going to crash and it's going to go back out, and inflation is going to come in. I mean, this is a year ago. You can go back to episode 70 and hear you talk very specifically about there's going to be high inflation, things are going to get more expensive. What are you going to do about it? And you talked about cash and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we need to talk more about it. You can go back and listen to episode 70 if you want to hear it all over again. But really, the situation from last year to today hasn't really changed much. It just has progressed forward to more certainty, meaning more inflation, interest rates rising, probably job losses coming. And so for entrepreneurs, it seems very clear to me in our own respective businesses, you got to have really, really strong relationships, and cash is king. Those with the strongest balance sheets will weather the economic recession that we will be facing in 23 and 24, according to all economists. So I hope that you as a business are really thinking through that, and don't be too prideful to make the decisions you need to make with this wave about to crash here pretty soon.
I love that. If there were one thing I'd recommend, I'd have to parlay a little bit off of my journey that I just shared. And I'd recommend every entrepreneur set big goals personally. I have a really big goal personally this year. You have a really big goal that's more personal than it is professional. And whether that big goal personally be get connected spiritually differently, whether it be take the vacation that hasn't been taken because the grinding has happened for so long, whether it be take care of somebody who's in the family or a friend who needs to be taken care of, or revive a relationship that has been lost. Like, I think I'm so invigorated about setting big goals personally. What's the worst case scenario, John? We don't do it? If we didn't set the big goal, we weren't going to do it anyway. So what did we lose by setting a big goal? We didn't lose anything. You know what we lose when we don't set big goals? An opportunity to stretch ourselves for our performance to match our potential. Now, that's business talk, but I'm talking about in our personal lives. The untapped potential we have in our personal lives to unlock the best of who we are for ourselves and those who we love, it lays dormant unless we set big goals for ourselves. I couldn't be more emphatic about the power of that. and what it can do to reinvigorate the individual to really strive for more.
Yeah, Rich, that is so powerful. When I think back to 18 and 19 and 20 and 21, I achieved some things. I also had some failures and different things that took place, but I didn't set big goals. I was kind of on what's going on this week. Okay, let me check the box. Let me do this. Let me do that. In 2022, I moved the needle by setting some bigger objectives and goals. I had more clarity, intentional, but still they weren't large. I didn't stretch myself too far. I just brought myself back to where I wanted to enjoy things. We just set some pretty big goals, and I love the idea of, as an entrepreneur, do that for yourself
Yes.
first and foremost, but you can also do that for your business. My line of caution on the business side of it is set that big goal with intentionality around what might happen in the next couple of years from an economic perspective, because the companies that do that right, Rich, will come out on top.
Mm.
So
Agreed. I think when we set big goals personally, it equips us to handle whatever's happening professionally better, because we realize there is a life outside of our business that's really important to care for and tend to. Nobody on their deathbed, as far as I know, says, you know what I wish I did in this life? I wish I spent more time at work. You know what people say? I wish I loved more. I wish I took care of my health better. I wish I didn't take people for granted. It's about connections and relationships with ourselves, the connection and relationship we have with ourselves first. And then it's about connection and relationships that we have with others, those who we love, those who we don't want to take for granted anymore. I think it's so, so important. And when we focus there, that seems like, oh, I don't have time for that. I'm focused on my business. I don't have time to focus on my personal life. I need to grind on my business. I'll tell you what, when you focus on the personal life, you bring such better balance and perspective to business. You don't sweat the small stuff. There are more things going on that are important than just hitting sales numbers and profit.
Yep, 100%, Rich. Couldn't have said it better. I love it. Again, it goes back to what you talked about last year, which is now coming back full circle again. To be self-conscious and take care of yourself is the most important thing we can do to be better parents, better, siblings, whatever. Be better at everything, including business. So I love that. And as we head now into 2023. Let's go set those big goals. We laid out a couple here, but I also want to still be clear and intentional about all the other things I want to accomplish, as should our listeners, as should you. And I just want to wish you all the best of health and prosperity in 2023.